Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of DIY Sensory Stories. Now, our story today is a bit of a classic. It is The Snail and the Whale by Julia Donaldson. And this is the story I read my little daughter every night. It's very good. Now, before we start our story, we are going to do three things. We are going to talk about our learning intentions. We're going to look at the resources we need to tell this story. And we are going to practice our signing. So, first of all, our learning intentions. As always, to request more if you're enjoying the sensory materials in this story. And as always, feel free to stop the video anytime if you're enjoying the sensory material. So, you can request more by signing more, by doing a lovely verbalization, a very gentle reach out to request more, or maybe even some lovely eye contact. That is all really good communication. Our second learning intention, as always, is to say, no thank you, I don't like it. If you don't like any of the sensory material in this story, that's okay. Just let us know. You can do this by signing finish or by very gently and appropriately pushing the material away. And our third intention, as always, is to have a lot of fun. When we're enjoying ourselves, we're doing some great interaction, some great communication. Okay, to tell the story, you will need some of the following things. I have got some shaving foam. I have got my spray. I have got my bubbles. I have a pot full of tiny little bells, but you might want to use something like glitter or anything nice and shiny. This is for the Snails Silver Trail. And I also have a pot of seashells. Right, it's time to do some signing. Our first sign is whale. Whale. Now, the easy way to remember this is you're making the spout out of the whale's blowhole. Whale. You have a go. Whale. Our next sign is snail. 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 You try. Snail. Snail. Sea. Sea. You have a go. Sea. Sea. Sky. Sky. You try. Sky. Sky. Sand. Sand. You have a go. Sand. Sand. And our last sign is boat. Boat. You have a go. Boat. Boat. I think we're ready. Are you sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin. This is the tale of a tiny snail and a great big grey-blue humpback whale. This is the rock as black as soot, and this is the snail with the itchy foot. A sea snail slithered all over the rock and gazed at the sea and the ships at the dock. And as she gazed, she sniffed and sighed. The sea is deep and the world is wide. How I long to sail, said the tiny snail. These are the other snails in the flock, who all stuck tight on their smooth black rock, and said to the snail with the itchy foot, "Oh, be quiet! Don't wriggle! Sit still! Stay put!" But the tiny snail sighed and sniffed, then cried, "I've got it! I'll hitch a lift!" This is the trail of the tiny snail, a silvery trail that looped and curled and said, "Lift wanted," around the world. Now I've got my silvery bells here for the snail's trail. Oh, wow. Do you want more or finished? I'll read on. This is the whale who came one night when the tides were high and the stars were bright, a humpback whale, immensely long, and he sang to the snail a wonderful song of shimmering ice and coral caves and shooting stars and enormous waves. And this is the tale of the humpbacked whale. He held it out of the starlit sea and said to the snail, "Come, sail with me." Now for our whale, I've got some bubbles. I've got some bubbles. Would you like more or finish? This is the sea, so wild and free, that carried the whale on his and the snail on his tail to towering icebergs and far-off lands. Now for our icebergs I have got, oh yes, some snow in the can. It's the shaving foam. Oh. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3, iceberg! And that really has gone everywhere. I am going to wipe my hands. I'll carry on with the story. With fiery mountains and golden sands, these are the waves that arched and crashed, that foamed and frolicked, and splayed and splashed, the humpbacked the tiny snail on the tail of the whale. And for our waves I've got, oh yes, the water spray. Oh, wow. Do you want more or finished? These are the caves beneath the waves, with stripy fish with feathery fins, and sharks with hideous toothy grins surround round the whale, and the snail on his tail. Now for our caves, for our sea caves, I've got my little bowl full of shells, and I can hear them making a sound. Can I hear the sea? Not quite, maybe I'm using the wrong shells, but it's still making a good sound. Ha! Do you want more or finished? This is the sky so vast and high, sometimes sunny and blue and warm, sometimes filled with a thunderstorm, with zigzag lightning, flashing and frightening the tiny snail on the tail of the whale. And as she gazed at the sky, the sea, the land, the waves and the caves and the golden sand, she gazed and gazed, amazed by it all, and she said to the whale, "I feel so small." But then came the day. The whale lost his way. These are the speedboats running a race, zigging and zooming all over the place, upsetting the whale with his ear-splitting roar, and making him swim too close to the shore. This is the tide slipping away, and this is the whale lying beached on the bay. "Quick, off the sand, back to sea," cried the snail. "I can't move on land, I'm too big," moaned the whale. The sea snail felt helpless and then terribly small. Then she cried, "I've got it!" and she started to crawl. "I must not fail," said the tiny snail. This is the bell in the school on the bay, ringing the children in from their play. This is the teacher holding her chalk, telling her class, "Sit straight, don't talk." This is the board as black as soot, and this is the snail with the itchy foot. "A snail, a snail." The teacher turns pale. "Look," say the children, "it's leaving a trail." This is the trail of the tiny snail, a silvery trail saying, "Save the whale." Now for the snail's silvery trail, I've got our silver bells again. Oh. Can you hear them? Would you like more or finished? These are the children running from school, fetching the fireman, digging a pool, squirting and spraying to keep the whale cool. This is the tide coming in from the bay, and these are the villagers shouting hooray as the whale and the snail travelled safely away. I've got our spray again. They're keeping the whale cool. Oh, wow. Do you want more or finish? Back on the dock and the flock on the rock, who say, "Hasn't time flown and haven't you grown?" And the whale and the snail told their wonderful tale of shimmering ice and coral caves and shooting stars and enormous waves, and how a snail so small and frail, with her looping, curling, silvery tail, saved the life of a humpbacked whale. Then the humpbacked whale held out his tail and on crawled snail after snail after snail. And they sang to the sea as they all set snail on the tail of the great blue humpback whale. And for our whale, I've got some bubbles again. Would you like more or finish? And that is the story of the snail and the whale. Before we finish, I have a little creature I'd like you to meet. One moment. What could it be? Yes, it's Barry, the African land snail. The African land snail. And if I give him a little spray, he might come out and say hello. Oh, can we see he's slowly sticking out his eyes just here. So Barry is a snail, just like the hero of our story. He has a lovely hard shell and one very slimy foot. His mouth is just here, and you can just see his eyes coming out on stalks. And if I just pull this one, Barry actually lays little eggs, just like this, which is really cool. Anyway, African land snails are amazing creatures. They come from the tropical parts of West Africa. They can live for between 5 and 7 years. The oldest ones have been known to live for 10 years. And they eat over 100 different types of plants. So they are really, really amazing animals. Now, unfortunately, there's a problem that sometimes African land snails have been released into other parts of the world, such as the United States and islands in the Pacific, where unfortunately they do a lot of damage to local wildlife. So that's something to be very mindful about. But yeah, He's a beautiful little creature. Okay, it's time to say goodbye from me and goodbye from Barry the Snail. We'll see you next time for DIY Sensory Stories. Bye bye!